The rushing sound of wind was suddenly transmitted across an endless serene blue sky. Immediately, dozens of black figures arrived from the distance. Within a couple of blinks, they stepped through the air and appeared on a green mountain. Junior Pavilion Chief, the area in front of us is the territory of the Yin Alliance. Based on our speed, we should be able to reach the mysterious yellow sky stream by evening. A white-robed elder swept his eyes around after landing on the mountain. He spoke to Xiao Yan beside him with a respectful tone. Xiao Yan slightly nodded. His eyes swept over his group and involuntarily smiled. This powerful lineup might not be extremely powerful within the Central Plains. However, in this northwestern region of the continent, even the stomping of their feet would cause the earth to shake. According to the latest news, adding up the experts of the Profound Lion Sect, the Hall of Souls, and some others who have been coerced, they have around 30 or so individuals who have reached the Dozun class. On the other hand, the Yin Alliance has, at the very most, 10 of them. The number of experts that both sides have is completely disproportionate. That white-robed old man paused before continuing. They also have 30-plus Dozuns, huh? Xiao Yan gently crossed his fingers. His face revealed an expression of contemplation. Although the quality of the experts in the northwestern region could not be compared to the Central Plains, they should also not be underestimated. After all, this continent was extremely vast. The Hall of Souls was naturally able to find some experts to aid them by using some tactics. Hence, Xiao Yan was not surprised that the Profound Lion Sect would have so many experts helping them. On the other hand, the strongest person in the Yin Alliance when he left back then was Kailin, who had been a 4 or 5-star Dozong. After these years of training, she probably reached the Dozun class. After all, she possessed the bloodline of the 7-colored heaven swallowing python, and her original talent was quite great. She would naturally be able to gain twice the results with half the effort when she trained. However, regardless of how strong Kailin was, she was only one person. Xiao Yan's expectations were far exceeds when he learned that the Yin Alliance possessed 10 elite Dozun. This kind of strength could be considered a top-tier faction even in the Central Plains. One could imagine just how swift and fierce the Yin Alliance had developed over the years. How many experts at the 6-star Dozun class or higher does the Profound Lion Sect have? Xiao Yan hesitated for a moment before suddenly asking. The gap between every star within the Dozun class was extremely large. For example, if Xiao Yan were to face 10 1-star elite Dozuns, they would not be able to cause him much harm. The Profound Lion Sect should have 8 people above a 6-star Dozun. There are 4 among them who have reached the 8th star of the Dozun level, however. We do not know if the Hall of Souls has secretly sent any stronger people. The white-robed elder replied. Thank you, Elder Xia. Xiao Yan nodded and softly responded. Junior Pavilion Chief is too polite? Let's go. We'll increase our speed and try to reach the mysterious yellow sky stream before evening. Xiao Yan softly exhaled. He immediately waved his hand and his toes pressed on the ground. The space in front of him fluctuated, and his body slowly disappeared. The large group behind him was unsurprised when they saw him disappear. Each of them moved their bodies and shot forward. Rumble. Dense dark clouds covered the sky above the mysterious yellow sky stream. A low rolling thunder sounded and resounded unceasingly within a 50-kilometer radius. The permeating black fog gradually scattered outside the mysterious yellow fortress. When the black fog scattered, it revealed a countless number of figures hidden within it. The endless sea of people stretched to the horizon as shocking battle cries spread from the army in a deafening manner. Even the mountain range began to tremble because of these battle cries. Countless warriors from the Yin Alliance stood on the towering fortress walls and watched the sea of people in the distance with grave expressions. The Yin Alliance might have met many enemies while it had expanded over the years, but not once had it been suppressed to the point that it could not retaliate, until now. Everyone let out a long sigh in their hearts. Their eyes shifted slightly before finally pausing on the middle of the wall. A pretty figure stood proudly at that spot. She was wearing narrow and tight-fitting red armor. The hard armor had difficulty hiding the alluring curves of her snake-like waist. Even at this moment, her cold, enchanting face did not reveal the slightest weakness. During these years, this woman, who was so beautiful that she appeared like the devil, had led the Yin Alliance out of the Jiama Empire to create one of the strongest factions in the northwestern corner of the continent. She had allowed the Jiama Empire, which was originally a relatively small and weak empire, to gain a place in the northwestern sphere. In the hearts of some of the Yin Alliance's experts, her position in the Yin Alliance was one that no one could truly replace. From a certain point of view, even the founder of the Yin Alliance could not reach her status. Are they finally about to attack? Kai Lin's long eyes stared at the black fog that had scattered in the distance. Her hand slowly wrapped around the long sword on her narrow waist. She pressed her red lips together as her face was covered with an icy cold decisiveness. Kai Lin, you should grab Xiao and leave should we fail to block them, Shouting sat on a wheelchair. His eyes looked at the permeating black fog from afar as he softly spoke. This is third brother's child. Nothing must happen to her. Shaoli by the side also revealed a grave expression on his face as he spoke in a deep voice. Kai Lin shook her head when she heard the words of those two. She turned her head and looked beside her. There was a little girl in white clothes there. The little girl appeared to be 4 or 5 years old. She appeared like beautifully carved jade and was extremely cute. There was a small 7-colored snake symbol on her brows. Her large, dark black eyes contained a spirituality that caused one to feel the desire to hold her. One could be mesmerized by her. Only when one recovered would one quietly feel awed. She already possessed such an unusual enchantment at such a young age. Would she not be even more bewitching than her mother when she grew up? Kai Lin looked at the little girl. A doting expression appeared in her narrow, icy eyes. She knelt down and gently hugged the little girl. The little girl seemed to be aware that the atmosphere was not quite right, but she did not cry. Her little hands hugged Kai Lin's long neck as she said in a crisp voice, "Mummy, there is no need to be afraid. First uncle said that father will return." Kai Lin curled her mouth when she heard this. She hugged the little girl before lifting her head a moment later. She looked at the little fairy doctor and softly asked, "Will he really return?" "He should require about half a year in the heavenly tomb. Counting the time, he should have already left the Gu realm. Yao Lao will definitely inform him about the problems here once he reaches the Falling Star Pavilion. Given his character, he will hurry over as quickly as possible." The little fairy doctor nodded as she replied. Kai Lin gently blinked her eyes but did not speak. Her hand gently patted the little head of the girl in her embrace. After which, she stared at the fairy doctor and said, "Should the fortress fall, you should grab Xiao and leave. If anything happens to her, I will never forgive Xiao Yan no matter what he does, even if I die." The little fairy doctor was slightly startled. She searched Kai Lin's tightly pressed mouth before quietly nodding. She was clearly aware of Kai Lin's character. She was always haughty and would definitely do what she claimed. "Ugh, Kai Lin, you have already done too much for the Yin Alliance and the Xiao clan during these years. If we can successfully get through this, I will definitely get Xiao Yan to formally marry you into our Xiao clan." Xiao Ding by the side softly sighed when he saw this act before speaking in a deep voice. He had witnessed all that Kai Lin had done for the Yin Alliance and the Xiao clan during these years. Back then, Xiao Yan had founded the Yin Alliance, only to throw this a big burden onto Kai Lin's shoulders. He was aware that Xiao Yan had to leave in order to rescue their father, but Kai Lin, being a woman, had not only helped him give birth to a daughter, she had even helped manage the Yin Alliance. This kind of sacrifice was extensive. Aye, Big Brother is right. Once that little fellow returns, we will definitely resolve this matter. Xiaoli heavily nodded. Both he and Xiao Ding had always viewed Xiao Yan as the most important person of the clan. This time around, they would definitely side with their sister-in-law no matter what. Let's first get through the trouble in front of us before talking about this. Kai Lin placed little Xiao Xiao, who was still in her embrace, down. A black-clothed young figure also surfaced within her mind. She gently bit her lower red lip as a complicated emotion flashed across her pretty eyes. Things would be all right if the queen of the Snake People tribe did not marry, but if she really gave her heart to someone, she'd be extremely loyal to that person. If her beloved died, her heart would die with him. This was the tradition of the Snake People tribe's Queen Medusa bloodline. Hence, Kai Lin understood that she would never be able to forget that person in her lifetime. Despite having been apart for many years, that figure did not fade. Instead, that figure had been etched even deeper into her memory. Rumble. A deafening drum suddenly appeared in the distant black fog when Kai Lin stood up. Immediately, many figures rushed out of the black fog and remained suspended in the sky. A powerful aura spread and covered the fortress. A strong-looking middle-aged man stood in the sky. He carried a huge golden blade. His eyes displayed an unusual excitement as he stared at the enchanting figure on the wall of the fortress. A loud laugh that was mixed with an overbearing tone resounded over the sky. "Ha ha, Medusa. Have you thought things through? Are you going to surrender to my profound lion sect, or will my profound lion sect to slaughter everyone in your Yin alliance?" A cold expression flashed across Kai Lin's long, narrow eyes when she heard the overbearing laughter that echoed across the sky. She gently took a step forward and glanced at the many figures in the distant sky. Her calm voice did not quiver even a little because of the current situation. Having managed the Yin alliance for many years, she, who was already the queen of the Snake People tribe, would not feel even the slightest fear in such a situation. The Yin alliance only has warriors who die in battle and no deserters who surrender. The golden-haired middle-aged man stood proudly in the sky. His large golden blade reflected a dense luster. He was not irritated when he heard Kai Lin's words. Instead, he loudly laughed. That heat within his eyes became even more intense. A woman with strong character was more suitable to his taste, who in the northwestern region was not aware of the cold and beautiful Kai Lin of the Yin Alliance. If he was able to capture her in this battle and keep her as his exclusive domain, any other battle would be nothing. There were women in this world whose every frown and smile could stir a war. Clearly, Kai Lin belonged to that category. Medusa, you should be clearly aware that the Yin Alliance is foolishly resisting. With your strength, it is impossible to compare with us. As long as your Yin Alliance agrees to submit to my profound lion sect and hand over all the members of the Xiao clan, I will use my position as the sect chief of the profound lion sect to guarantee that not a single person from the Yin Alliance will be hurt. The golden-haired man faintly laughed. Activate the formation. Kai Lin merely glanced at the man as he laughed, after which a soft, icy cold cry was emitted from her mouth. Understood. Nervous responses immediately appeared from the surroundings following Kai Lin's soft cry. The sky outside of the fortress trembled, and an enormous energy barrier slowly covered the entire fortress. Finally, it stood between both armies. Archers, get ready. Kai Lin once again coldly commanded. The creaking sound of bows being pulled immediately resonated again and again. Many 70 to 80-foot large ballistas were rapidly being loaded by a few people. 20-foot-long sharp arrows emitted cold lusters as they stood at the ready. These ballistas and arrows had been built by the Yin Alliance using special materials. When they were used by a couple of Do Ling warriors, their might could penetrate a careless Do Huang and firmly nail that Do Huang to the ground. The golden-haired man involuntarily frowned when he saw that his voice had attracted these things instead of a response. Xiao, stop uttering such nonsense. If you like that woman, we will capture her and give her to you once the fortress falls. If those members of the Xiao clan end up escaping because of you, you will not be able to bear the responsibility. A cold and sinister voice suddenly sounded from behind while the golden-haired man was frowning. The expression of that middle-aged man called Xiao changed when he heard this voice. He turned his head and glanced at a black-clothed elder standing in the air. Many spiritual bodies were lingering around this elder. Their miserable screeches caused one to feel a chill within one's heart. This person's dark and stern face was filled with a familiarity. Upon closer observation, it was the ninth Tianzuan, who had once led the experts from the Hall of Souls to attack the Falling Star Pavilion. Ninth Tianzuan worries too much. The current Yin alliance is as good as dead. That little strength is not even worth mentioning in our eyes. How could it be possible to let the members of the Xiao clan escape? Xiao laughed. You should understand the consequence if any mishaps occur. Ninth Tianzuan glanced at him and felt a little impatient. This person from this barbaric land only possessed the strength of a 6-star Dozun, yet he was incomparably arrogant. He was ignorant that this little strength was only an ordinary existence. Xiao dryly laughed. He also seemed to be aware of Ninth Tianzuan's impatience. He didn't feel like uttering any more unnecessary words. He lifted his head and looked at the strong defense of the fortress. A moment later, he suddenly raised his hand as a loud cry was emitted. Medusa, your last chance has been forfeited by you. Everyone listen up.
Attack.
Charge. The ocean-like army outside of the fortress suddenly unleashed an earth-shaking battle cry after they heard Xiao's loud roar. The entire land quickly trembled. The seemingly endless army charged toward the fortress like floodwater with a surging desire to kill. The expression of everyone on the fortress was a little grave as they sensed the murderous aura that had suddenly spread over the sky. Their hands tightened on their weapons. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Waves of the sound of rushing wind immediately erupted from the fortress when the floodwater-like army surged over. The huge arrows from earlier shot out like clusters of dark cloud. They landed on the profound lion sect's army, and miserable cries suddenly sounded. Kai Lin watched a countless number of soldiers get nailed into the ground from the wall. There was not the slightest fluctuation in her pretty eyes. She slowly lifted her head and looked at the sky. There were 100 people standing in the air at that spot. Behind these 100 people were densely packed Do Wangs, flapping their Do Qi wings and Do Huangs. This unit was the most frightening. Attack! Break the energy barrier. Xiao watched the army below, which had been stopped 1,000 feet from the fortress. His face did not show the slightest pain. The army below consisted of people weaker than a Do Wang, making them cannon fodder. The ones who could truly shake the Yin Alliance were the elites in the sky. The experts in the sky finally began to form a semicircle with the wave of Xiao's hand. They swiftly approached the fortress. A loud cry sounded and wave after wave of powerful Do Qi pillars whistled through the sky. They rushed toward the Do Qi barrier from all directions. Bang, bang, bang. Countless energy pillars exploded against the energy barrier, causing it to fluctuate and form many circular ripples. Archers, change targets. All experts at the Do Wang class and above retaliate and stabilize the energy barrier. Kai Lin issued numerous orders in an orderly fashion as the profound lion sect attacked. She had become unusually familiar with these kinds of battles over the years. Swoosh, swoosh. Kai Lin's words had just sounded when the enormous arrows suddenly shifted. The densely packed arrow clouds spread apart in the sky. They were accompanied by the whistling sound of rushing wind as they ruthlessly shot toward those experts from the profound lion sect in the sky. Ah! Even though these experts were quite skilled, the bodies of quite a number of them were forcefully penetrated by this attack. Many bodies dropped to the ground like kites with broken strings. However, this bloody battle had caused the experts from both sides to turn mad from fighting. Many powerful Dochi figures whizzed toward the sky and ruthlessly took turns striking each other. Bang bang! Densely packed attacks continuously poured down on the energy barrier. The ripples on the barrier had become more intense. Due to the defenses of the energy barrier, the rate at which the profound Lion Sect's experts fell clearly exceeded that of the Yen Alliance. They should be sufficiently exhausted. Xiao Yan watched the continuously rippling energy barrier from the sky. He smiled while his hand slowly displayed a strange hand signal. The reason that the profound Lion Sect could dominate nearly half of the northwestern continent was not because of these Do Wangs and Do Huangs. Instead, it was because of their elite Do Zongs and Do Zuns. After Xiao Yan displayed this hand signal, the black fog behind him slowly tore apart. Nearly 100 figures slowly walked forward. There were 30 individuals with frighteningly strong auras. The appearance of these people caused this entire area to tremble a little. Kai Lin and the others on the wall finally revealed a change in expression when these people appeared. These people would determine the victor of this battle. Rumble. The 100 figures slowly walked through the air. The enormous arrows that came flying over would automatically explode when they were 1,000 feet from them. The 100 figures finally halted when they were still 1,000 feet away from the fortress. They let out a cold cry in union. One could see wave after wave of majestic Do Chi surging from their bodies before gathering in the sky. The Do Chi in the sky formed a 10,000-foot-wide energy beast. The enormous beast took shape. 200-foot-long white streams of smoke were released from its nostrils, after which it walked through empty air and ruthlessly collided with the energy barrier of the fortress in front of countless pairs of shocked eyes. Although there were ferocious attacks coming from the fortress and smashing into the enormous beast, they were unable to block the beast. The enormous beast strode across the sky. It endured an incomparably crazy attack as it heavily knocked against the energy barrier in front of many pale faces. These pale faces belonged to the members of the Yen Alliance. Bang! The entire place seemed to grow quiet because of the collision. A circular energy ripple began to swiftly spread from the point of the collision. Finally, one heard a bang. The energy barrier in the sky emitted a loud explosive sound in front of many shocked gazes and suddenly exploded apart. Kai Lin slowly clenched her hand when the energy barrier burst apart. An icy cold voice resounded beside the ears of everyone on the wall. Everyone, the northwestern region might be large, but we no longer have any path of retreat because behind us lies our empire and its land. If your heart still possesses a fire, pick up your weapons and fight to the end. Roar. Fight till the end. That cold voice instantly caused the eyes of all the warriors from the Yen Alliance to redden. A trembling excitement spread from deep within his heart. It transformed into a furious roar echo to the sky. Charge! A ferocious smile formed on Xiao Yan's face as he watched the energy barrier shatter from the sky. He waved his hand down and coldly cried out. After Xiao Yan's cry sounded, the many Do Wangs and Do Huangs, who had been blocked outside, charged forward with a ferocious roar. They charged toward the walls like a storm. Charge! Kai Lin suddenly grabbed the long sword on her waist as she watched the human figures charging over with a surging desire to slaughter. A vast and mighty Do Chi erupted from her body. She swung her sword forward, and a 1,000-foot-large sword glow hacked dozens of Do Huangs into two. At the same time, an icy cold cry was emitted from her mouth. Bang! Numerous figures on the wall rose the moment Kai Lin's cold cry sounded. They violently collided with the army of strong individuals from the profound lion sect, and the sounds of battle resonated around the sky. Little fairy doctor, I will leave Xiao Xiao to you. Guard her well. Kai Lin's pretty eyes turned to the little fairy doctor by her side. She softly gave an order after taking in the situation of the battle, which had become extremely intense as the forces collided. The little fairy doctor softly sighed and nodded. Mummy! Although little Xiao Xiao was young, she seemed to have sensed the difference in the atmosphere as she hurriedly hugged Kai Lin's long leg. She lifted her small face and used her dark black teary eyes to look at her mother. Be obedient. Don't be afraid. Mummy will go and look for you in a while. Kai Lin gently patted little Xiao Xiao's head. A doting smile surfaced on her enchanting face, after which she handed Xiao Xiao to the little fairy doctor. A reluctance to part with Xiao Xiao flashed across her pretty eyes. However, she clenched her teeth, turned around, and rushed into the air. A majestic Do Chi surged and turned the few fastest expert Do Wongs in front into pools of blood. Shi Tian, do you dare step forward and fight with this queen? Kai Lin stood in the empty air. Her icy cold eyes shot toward Shi Tian in the distance as she coldly cried out, Ha ha, how can I reject the invitation of a beauty? Shi Tian laughed aloud upon hearing this offer. The golden blade in his hand danced and formed clusters of sparks. His feet stepped on empty air as he appeared in front of Kai Lin within a couple of flashes. Both of his eyes were fiery hot as they studied the exceptionally delicate and voluminous figure in front of him. This figure could barely be hid by the tight-fitting red armor. Lust suddenly rose from his lower abdomen. Such an enchanting creature is really rare. It is really too good for this little brat called Xiao Yan. Once I snatch her, such a beauty will belong to me. Kai Lin did not say any unnecessary words after seeing Shi Tian accept the battle. Do Chi surged from her body without being held back. The long sword in her hand was bared as her body moved. She appeared beside Shi Tian with lightning-like speed. The sharp sword struck at different angles and covered all the fatal spots on Shi Tian's body like a storm. Shi Tian's expression might appear calm when facing Kai Lin's body, but his heart had become cautious. Kai Lin was not weaker than him. Her battle experience was definitely greater than his after a countless number of battles. Hence, he did not dare to underestimate her. The golden blade danced like a windmill and blocked the sharp sword attacks. While Kai Lin and Shi Tian were engaged in a big battle in the sky, the area within a 1,000-foot radius of the fortress was filled with chaotic fights. The experts from the Yin Alliance had all charged forward. Both parties clashed and a fiery hot, intense battle immediately erupted. During this intense battle between both parties, some experts who accidentally allowed their opponents to grab an opening and kill them. Even some elite dozongs could not protect themselves. Should they be unlucky, they would be surrounded and attacked by over a dozen people, which resulted in them withdrawing from serious injuries. Should one be unlucky, it was not rare for one to be killed on the spot. The ninth Tianzuan was suspended in the sky outside the chaotic battleground. His eyes were indifferent as he watched the battles that continuously erupted. A cold smile surfaced on his body. In his eyes, all the dead people were souls. They would be sucked into the ground by an unusual strength when they died. Even the weak souls did not escape. Fight. The more deaths, the better. Ninth Tianzuan laughed in a cold voice. The more dead people, the better it was for the Hall of Souls. After a big battle, they would be able to absorb thousands, or even tens of thousands of souls. This kind of speed was many times faster than in the past. Bang! The little fairy doctor was hugging little Xiao Xiao on the wall. Her expression was cold and indifferent as she swung out a poison chi pillar. It struck a profound lion sex expert who had charged onto the wall until he spat out black blood and fell. After which, she allowed little Xiao Xiao to hide her eyes against her shoulder. Only then did she raise her head and look around her. Her heart involuntarily sank a little. The Yin Alliance might have had the advantage in terms of terrain, but the quantity and quality of their experts were far inferior to the Profound Lion sect. Although they were able to block the other party for some time, this could not last for long. At this moment, quite a number of places had been breached by the experts from the Profound Lion sect. These experts rushed onto the city wall and caused a lot of destruction. If some Yin Alliance experts did not attempt to block the enemy, it was likely that this destruction would have been many times greater. Little Fairy Dr. Jejia, you should bring little Xiao and leave. This place will not be able to hold out for long. A soft cry suddenly sounded from beside the little fairy doctor. The little fairy doctor turned her head and found that Qing Lin had spoken. At this moment, Qing Lin had already summoned all the experts that she could control. With the mysterious strength she possessed, this part of the wall was a lot stronger than the other places. Hee, you were thinking of leaving? How can it be so easy? Qing Lin's cry had just sounded when a couple of ghost-like figures suddenly rushed over. They remained suspended in the air before letting out a dark laugh. Elite Dozuns. The little fairy doctor knit her brows slightly upon seeing these few figures. The Profound Lion sect had begun to use these experts. Humph! A couple of Dozuns below 3 stars dare to act presumptuous here. Qing Lin coldly laughed. Her body moved, and she charged forward. The controlled experts shot out at the same time. They charged and surrounded those few Dozuns. Little fairy doctor, leave? Tianhua Zunjia had also appeared beside the little fairy doctor when Qing Lin had acted to block those elite Dozuns. He spoke in a deep voice while his eyes stared intently into the distance. The large group of Dozuns from the Profound Lion sect had already begun to join the battle. With the strength of these people, any ordinary defenses were basically useless. Tianhua Zunjia did not wait for the little fairy doctor after his voice sounded. With a wave of his hand, a couple of figures came rushing down from the wall. They appeared beside him. These were all the elite Dozuns within the Yin Alliance. Although their numbers were far from being comparable to the Profound Lion sect, they still needed to fight. Charge! Tianhua Zunjia cried out with a deep voice. His feet pressed into the ground as his body took the lead to charge forward. A couple of elite Dozuns followed close behind him. TSK. This little girl possesses an extremely powerful spiritual strength. It is the first time that this old self has seen anyone in possession of such spiritual strength at such an age. The little fairy doctor's eyes dimmed slightly when she saw this scene. She hugged little Xiao and began to hurriedly pull back. However, she had just withdrawn by 1,000 feet when a dense black fog rushed over. A shady-looking old man rushed out from the fog. He emitted a strange laugh as the chain in his hand ruthlessly shot toward little Xiao in the little fairy doctor's embrace. Bastard! The little fairy doctor suddenly became furious when she saw that damn old fellow attack a child. She waved her hand, and a lethal poisonous doqi pillar shot out and knocked the chain aside. Her toes pressed on the ground, and she once again pulled back instead of giving chase. Where can you flee to? The little fairy doctor had just pulled back when another black figure arrived with a fierce wind. Sharp wind was released from a palm and ruthlessly slammed toward the little fairy doctor. While this black figure was attacking, that sinister-looking old man once again rushed over. Those two unleashed attacks with their full strengths on both sides of the little fairy doctor, surrounding her in the process. Bang! Shaoli, catch her! The little fairy doctor's expression changed slightly when faced with the combined attack of two elite 6-star Dozuns. The corner of her eye glaced at Shaoli, who was a short distance away. She flung her hand, and a gentle wind delivered little Xiao away from her. At the same time, an extremely lethal poisonous doqi surged out of her body in all directions. It received the combined attacks of two elite Dozuns. A short distance away, Xiao had noticed the little fairy doctor was surrounded and attacked. He hurriedly moved when he saw her toss little Xiao his way. Within a couple of leaps, he had arrived behind little Xiao. However, a ghost-like figure reached little Xiao when Xiao had just extended his hand to grab her. A sharp wind slammed into Xiao's chest with lightning-like speed. The powerful force caused Xiao to spit out a mouthful of blood as his body flew backwards. Bastard! Xiao's eyes turned blood-red when he saw that this fellow was intending to grab little Xiao after having launched a sneak attack. Tisk. That skinny old man laughed strangely, after which he turned around and reached toward little Xiao in the air. Kai Lin, who was battling Shirtion in the distance, immediately turned pale when she saw what was happening. Medusa, surrender quickly. Otherwise, do not blame the old me for being vicious. The skinny old man grabbed little Xiao's clothes in front of many shocked eyes. He stared at Kai Lin with a ferocious face, but just as he spoke his final word, a chill suddenly appeared deep within his heart. It had just materialized when an icy hand suddenly appeared around his throat without any forewarning, after which it ruthlessly clamped down like metal pliers. The sound of bones breaking could be as the old man's neck was broken. The peripheral vision of the old man glanced over just before he died. An unfamiliar black-clothed man with an indifferent expression had unknowingly appeared behind him. The black-clothed man, who had suddenly appeared, randomly tossed aside the old man's corpse, after which he extended his arm and hugged that little girl, who was using her large dark black to stare at him. A gentle smile was revealed on his indifferent face. Raising his head, he studied Kai Lin and the others in the distance, whose bodies had suddenly stiffened. With a faint smile, his gentle voice was slowly transmitted into the Kai Lin's ears. Sorry, I have returned a little late.